The soft ripples of the lake shimmered under the evening sun as I tied my boat to the dock. The sky was quiet, the kind of quiet that comes right before a storm, the kind that hides in plain sight. I felt it in my bones. Trouble was coming. And it came, wearing pastel pink and pearls. From the corner of my eye, I saw her, Patricia Hendris, the self-proclaimed queen of the HOA. Her walk was fast, heels clacking like warning shots on the dock's wooden planks. She held her clipboard like a sword, ready to slash at anyone who dared cross her imaginary kingdom. "You can't dock that boat here," she barked, not even bothering with a greeting. I tightened the line around the cleat and looked up calmly. "Actually, I can," her jaw tightened. "No, you can't. This marina is private property. For Sunset Shores residents only." I smiled faintly. "Good thing I am one," her tone sharpened. "And residents must have HOA approval before launching any watercraft." That's when I said it, the sentence that would start a war. "Patricia," I said quietly, "I don't just have access rights. I own this marina." Her face froze. The smile vanished. For a second, I thought the world had stopped spinning. Then, just like that, she found her words, sharp and dripping with disbelief. "That's impossible," she hissed. "No one owns my marina," I chuckled softly. "Then I guess your paperwork is outdated." And that's when her obsession began. 3 months earlier, I'd bought the old Morrison property, a waterfront home with a gorgeous dock and, as it turned out, a controlling 51% stake in the very marina Patricia thought she ruled. The deal had come through quietly, from the late owner's estate lawyer. The marina wasn't just a piece of land, it was history. Built by Frank Morrison 40 years ago, it had survived storms, floods, and more HOA disputes than any man could count. Frank believed the water should belong to those who respected it, not to people who wrote rules from behind closed doors. I admired that. So, when I got the chance to buy it, I didn't hesitate. But Patricia? She didn't admire. She controlled. Within days of my moving in, she showed up on my doorstep with a fake smile and a welcome basket, and a 3-inch binder labeled Sunset Shores HOA Regulations. "I've highlighted the key sections," she said sweetly, "especially the ones about boats and docks. We like to keep our marina clean and consistent." Her tone made consistent sound like a threat. I took the binder, nodded politely, and placed it on the kitchen counter. Then I went back to unpacking. That was mistake number 1, ignoring the binder. Mistake number 2 came when I missed the HOA's mandatory orientation meeting. I had no interest in spending my evening listening to a group of retirees argue about mailbox colors and hedge heights. By week 2, Patricia's emails started. First, they were polite reminders. Then they became warnings. And finally, they turned into demands. Failure to comply with HOA. Regulations may result in penalties. Unauthorized use of the dock will lead to suspension of privileges. Community image must be protected at all costs, I replied once, short and simple. Appreciate the concern. I'll handle my property as permitted by law. That was the spark. Within days, Patricia was watching me from across the lake like a hawk, recording with her phone every time I walked to the dock. She started hosting community safety meetings that were really gossip sessions about me. She sent her nephew, some 22-year-old wannabe cop, to inspect my boat for violations. And when none of that worked, she called for a special HOA board meeting. That night, the clubhouse was packed. Neighbors whispered, the air thick with curiosity. Patricia stood at the podium like a prosecutor ready to deliver her closing argument. Behind her, a slideshow projected onto the wall. The boat problem, a threat to Sunset Shores. Slide after slide. She presented pictures of my boat, docked, tied, sitting quietly and as if it were some criminal. "This vessel," she said, pointing dramatically, "has been operating without HOA approval, violating community bylaws and lowering property values." The crowd murmured. I sat in the back, calm, waiting for her to finish. When she did, I walked to the front. "Mind if I show a few slides of my own?" I asked. I plugged in my phone and the projector flickered to a document, the marina deed. Ladies and gentlemen, I began, the Sunset Marina is not HOA property. It's a separate entity, privately owned. And as of March 14th, I own 51% of it. A hush fell. You could feel the room holding its breath. This means, I continued, the HOA has no authority over marina operations, dock access, or vessel approvals. Those decisions fall under the marina management. That's me. Patricia's face turned crimson. This is ridiculous, she shouted. You can't just buy your way out of community rules. I looked her dead in the eyes. I didn't buy my way out. I bought my way in. Gasps filled the room. Even her board members looked uncomfortable. Patricia slammed her binder shut, muttering something about fake documents and illegal loopholes. But the truth was right there, in ink and signatures. That night, I thought it was over. I was wrong, because Patricia wasn't just angry. She was humiliated. And humiliation is the one thing people like her can't live with. The next few weeks felt like living under siege. Anonymous complaints to city zoning. Random inspections from environmental services. Even the Coast Guard Auxiliary got a tip about an unlicensed vessel, mine. Each time the officials left shaking their heads. Everything looks fine, Mr. Lawson, they'd say. Someone's wasting our time. I knew who that someone was. Then came the breaking point. It was a warm Saturday evening when I returned from a peaceful solo ride on the lake. I was untying the ropes when the distant wail of sirens reached my ears. Red and blue lights reflected off the water. 2 police cruisers pulled up by the marina gate. Patricia was there, standing beside them, waving dramatically like she'd just uncovered a drug ring. There, she shouted. That's him. That's the trespasser. I froze, not out of fear, but out of disbelief. Was she really doing this? The officers approached, calm but cautious. One of them, Officer Martinez, spoke first. Sir, we received a report about an unauthorized individual using private property. Can we see your identification and permission to dock here? Behind him, Patricia smirked, victory glinting in her eyes. I reached into my jacket, pulled out my wallet, and handed over 2 things. My ID and a laminated copy of the marina ownership deed. Officer, I said evenly, before you write that report, you might want to read this. Martinez scanned the paper, his brows rising. Patricia leaned forward, trying to see. What is that? She demanded. He looked at her, then back at me. Ma'am, he said slowly, according to this man owns the property in question. The smirk on her face cracked. What? He nodded. You might want to sit tight while we verify this. As the officer stepped aside to make a call, I leaned against my boat, arms folded, calm as the lake. Patricia, however, was trembling. Part rage, part panic. She had made her biggest mistake yet, and she didn't even know it. The air around the marina was thick, the kind of silence that sits heavy right before everything changes. The police radio crackled as Officer Martinez spoke to dispatch, his tone calm but sharp. Patricia stood a few feet away, tapping her foot, convinced she'd finally caught me breaking one of her precious rules. I watched her, arms crossed, leaning casually against my boat. The golden hour light flickered across the water, reflecting off her nervous expression. She wasn't used to waiting. Patricia was used to controlling. A few moments later, Martinez returned. He handed her a printed report from the cruiser's onboard system. Ma'am, he said evenly, this document confirms that Mr. Lawson here is the majority owner of the Sunset Marina. That makes him the legal authority for this property. Her smile died instantly. That's impossible, she snapped. This marina is part of the HOA. The second officer, Chen, shook his head. No, ma'am. The HOA doesn't have jurisdiction over this parcel. The deed is clear. It's privately owned. Patricia's eyes widened. But the rules... Ma'am, Martinez interrupted, his tone firm. You filed a false report of trespassing. We could fine you for misuse of police resources. The silence that followed was louder than any argument. Patricia's face turned pale, her mouth open but empty. She wanted to speak, to protest. But all her words had been stripped of power. I stepped forward slowly, meeting her stunned eyes. Next time, I said softly. "You might want to check who owns the dock before calling the police." For a moment, she didn't move. Then, trembling, she turned away, muttering something under her breath as the officers thanked me for my time and left. The lights faded, the night returned, and the lake went still again. But that night, that single moment, changed everything. By morning, the story had spread like wildfire. Word traveled faster than gossip ever could. "Patricia called the cops on the marina owner," they whispered. She didn't even know who she was messing with. For the first time in years, the neighborhood wasn't afraid of her. They were laughing. The once dreaded HOA president was now the talk of every front porch and dockside chat. People who had stayed silent for years started coming to me, quietly at first, sharing their own stories. Tom, the fisherman from Unit 12, told me how Patricia banned his yellow kayak because it clashed with the lake's color palette. Sarah, from Unit 33, had to write a 3-page essay explaining why she deserved to use the dock for her paddleboard. Even old George, who'd lived there since the 80s, confessed that Patricia once fined him for having the wrong shade of blue on his mailbox. Enough was enough. So, I called for an emergency community meeting, the first one not run by Patricia in nearly a decade. When I arrived at the clubhouse, every seat was filled. Residents stood along the walls, some holding their HOA violation letters like trophies of oppression. Patricia sat in the front row, arms crossed, lips tight, trying to look unfazed. I stepped up to the podium. The microphone crackled. The room fell silent. "Neighbors," I began, "I think we can all agree. Sunset Shores stopped being a community a long time ago. It became a kingdom. And one person ruled it like a dictator." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Patricia rolled her eyes but said nothing. "But today," I continued, "we're changing that. I pulled up a slideshow. Not rules, not regulations, but photos. Happy families by the lake from years ago. Kids fishing, people laughing, the marina filled with life. This is what Sunset Shores used to be," I said. "Not fear, not fines, but community." Then I revealed my plan. Transparent marina access. No more HOA control over boating rights. Fair, open communication between residents. Applause filled the room. Some even stood. Patricia slammed her palm on the table. "You can't do this," she shouted. "You're destroying the HOA structure. This is illegal." That's when old George, calm, gray-haired, and respected by all, stood up slowly. "Patricia," he said, his voice deep and steady, "the only thing being destroyed here is your control." The room erupted, applause, cheers, even laughter. Patricia looked around, realizing the crowd she once commanded was gone. Her empire had crumbled in a single night. The HOA vice president, a quiet man named Leonard who'd always followed her orders, stood and cleared his throat. "I'd like to make a motion," he said. "A vote of no confidence in President Hendris." Patricia froze. "What did you just say?" Leonard looked her dead in the eye. "You've embarrassed this community. You've abused your position. It's time." The vote was quick. 17 in favor, 2 against, 1 abstention, her sister. The motion passed. Patricia Hendris was officially removed as HOA president. Her face turned red, then white, then something between disbelief and fury. "You'll regret this," she screamed. "You'll all regret this." But her threats no longer mattered. I stepped forward one last time. "And one more motion," I said. "Effective immediately, the HOA will relinquish all administrative control of the marina to the owner, permanently." The motion passed unanimously. Patricia stormed out, heels slamming against the tile, muttering curses under her breath. Weeks turned into months. The marina came back to life. Kids fished again, families barbecued, laughter returned to the lake. The air, once heavy with her rules, now carried peace. Patricia tried, of course, to fight back. She filed complaints, threatened lawsuits, even showed up one day with a new lawyer. But every time, the answer was the same. "You have no jurisdiction." Eventually, she gave up, but karma wasn't done with her yet. Word spread about her misuse of HOA funds. The board discovered administrative expenses that didn't quite add up. thousands of dollars unaccounted for. The new leadership pressed charges. Her reputation collapsed faster than her authority. The woman who once controlled every mailbox color was now facing court hearings and community service. And in the ultimate twist of irony, guess where those hearings were held? That's right, at the marina conference room, my marina. When she walked in, head down, clutching a folder of excuses, I was there, sitting quietly at the back. She didn't look at me, but she didn't have to. The silence between us said enough. When it was over, she stormed out again, same heels, same pride, but no audience left to admire her. A few weeks later, I stood alone on the dock at sunset. The sky burned orange and gold, the water calm as glass. I'd hung a small wooden sign at the edge of the dock. It read simply, owner-operated, no drama, no shouting, just peace. As I leaned against the railing, watching the last light fade, I thought back to that night with the flashing police lights. The moment Patricia tried to humiliate me and ended up exposing herself instead. Sometimes revenge doesn't need rage. It just needs patience. I smiled, breathed in the cool air, and whispered, "Some people learn the hard way." The lake shimmered quietly in agreement, and for the first time in a long, long while, Sunset Shores was finally free.